again, very welcome, and a particular welcome to Keith Papers. Now, those of us from Westford who took Ormiston last year have heard Keith speak for the first time, and they're in for the speech. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. A little bit of history on myself is that I went into the winter with 84 stocks of bees. They're kept on the outskirts of the Phoenix Park, and I have some of them in Meath, some of them in North County Dublin, and I have another 8 then in an industrial estate, and one in Wicklow as well. So far my losses are, I have 20 empty hives dead already so far this year. What was the reason on it? I do a little bit of new production, and I sort of oversplit a lot of hives, put a little bit of pressure on them. We had no pollen coming in last year for August, September, so bees went into the winter time malnourished and not enough body fats on them, and there's other little things as well, but really the main sort of reason why all my losses are, I'm pointing the finger at myself, that for the last 20 years I was able to push and push and push, and then you just get one long winter where you have 7 months without any pollen coming into the hive at all whatsoever. And your winter bees can only go so long, and you really need about 2 kilos of bees to take your bees through the winter time. And if you don't have that number of bees going into it, well then you can't sustain that core nest temperature, which is at 35 degrees, that we need to go through the winter time. So I think that's what happened with an awful lot with my losses, is that I was splitting them a little bit too much. Well, I had 4 knocked over and 1 80 by sheep. They were exposed for about 4 or 5 weeks to the elements as well, and they were dead as well. One of them I know was nosema, and the rest of them then are just down to numbers being a little bit too low. So really this, what this is about, it's really to understand the concept behind from your egg right up to your laying queen. I'm not going to really get too much into depths into the queen rearing end of or whatever like that. We'll skip over a little bit. And so there's a few little things that we must have in place. Just 3 things we must have in place before we start into queen rearing, and it's sexually mature drones on it, right? So drones are not mature until they're 12 days old, right? And then your queen, once you have your queen is hatched, she doesn't go out to mate till she's about 6 days old. So really, we can't graft until we actually physically see drones out in the hive. So people don't understand, say to me, oh, when can I get a queen? Can I get a queen now, or whatever like that. You physically can't get a queen until the end of May, because we're not going to graft until the end of the 2nd week in May. That's when I would start seeing any drones and any numbers coming out into the hive. So the end of the 2nd week in May, and by the time you do your graft, it's about 3 weeks later before we're going to have a queen in the air. So I would start my, for me, because in my main maiden apiary is the one just in Castleknock outside the Phoenix Park, and I would have 40 hives in the one apiary. It's able to sustain that because of the amount of tree honey that I get in the area, and it's mainly that apiary is all trees. So I would select from my best hives that I would grade in the springtime, and I would have maybe 12 hives in that apiary that I would use as drone production, and these are the ones that I want to push out the vast amount of drones out into the and flood the area with it. So all I just do is I take, that's not, I just leave that bag there. So I just take the frame and I cut it. This one is actually a little bit low. I cut it about 1/3 of the way up, and it's just, that would have been a frame that I put into the hive last year, but the bees just threw out wrong the bottom end of it. So instead of throwing it away and restarting with a fresh frame, I just cut it back to about that. I insert it into the hive in around early April, just when the dandelion is starting. And any space that you give them in April, they're going to 100% draw it out in drone brood. So, and this is what happens here. Literally just after a couple of days, you get them to draw down the drone, and within about a week or so, it's fully drawn out with drone. The benefit of doing this as well is that you have fresh, clean wax for your drones, because Baberol affects the fertility of your drones. Now, for me, I don't use Baberol anymore, but I have used it for up to the last 3 years. I had my bees were tested, and it came back that Baberol was only 26% effective on it. So that's how far it was down. There was another guy in Dublin named McGee. He had his bees tested against the effectiveness of Baberol, and that came back as 12%. So you might as well be just putting water into the hive. It was having no effect at all whatsoever. So, and you can actually see a visible difference within your hives, and this would be the back frame. Back frame is usually where all your drones congregate anyway, so the numbers are up a little bit as well. But you can see the amount of drones that are in the hive, and any hive that you do it to, no matter what frame you pick it out, you'll automatically see plenty more drones in it. I would put those 2 frames into each hive, and they would go into position 3 and position 7 is where I put them in. So that's really just to give a boost to my top breeding colonies in the apiary. So that's the first one. The second thing that we must have before you start any queen rearing or swarm cells at all whatsoever is your bee pollen. And this is probably actually the most important of the whole lot of them, because pollen is your building blocks. The building blocks for healthy bees. And once again, without the pollen you can't have healthy bees. It's the exact same thing with my winter losses. This is the reason why I have my winter losses, is that not enough pollen stores have ran out. They've been 7 months without any sort of vitamins or minerals or enzymes, fats, trace elements, and the most important thing here is your amino acids as well, which helps to actually breaks down all of this into a food substance. So, and you can just see that, for the amount of pollen that comes into the hive, once a hive goes into actually spring development and it starts to peak, that they use about 1 frame, 1 national frame, or 1 side of 1 national frame per day just for rearing brood alone, right? Now they also, that each leg of the bee holds 1 milligram of pollen, but each nurse bee actually needs 1 milligram per day just for himself in order to brood rear before she actually feeds any brood at all whatsoever. So it just goes to show the importance of pollen coming into the hive and the huge amount of it that is needed. So what does pollen do? For us with queen rearing and with queen development is we've got to understand the importance of it is that for making royal jelly. You don't really have to understand all of this that's in the royal jelly. But we have to understand the link between royal jelly and pollen, and to realise that pollen, what it is actually, it's a superfood for our bees. And without royal jelly, we either have no workers, we've no brood, and we've no drones at all whatsoever. So, so just understand the difference of it. That a queen and the workers are fed different royal jelly. So for the first 2 days, the workers receives a combination from both glands, both food glands. And then after 2 days, then it's fed a mixture from the mandible gland and nectar from the honey sac, which may contain a little bit of pollen as well, right? So it's low in sugars at first, and then it increases in sugars to fructose. Now here's the difference. So a queen receives equal amounts from both glands, but it's higher in the sugar content, and it's actually different in the mineral contents than the worker bee as well. So to put this into perspective is that what we're trying to do is that when we start queen rearing is to select the best cells, but not only the best cells when we're doing grafting or cells, is that we want to change that worker larva as quickly as possible into a queen larva. So now, and here's the difference on it. Two ends of the spectrum. This here is the developed ovaries of a laying worker, and this is the fully developed ovaries of a queen, right? So, what we want with a tip-top queen is 260 to 375 tubes. And each of these tubes does about 26 eggs in process at one stage. Anything in between that is an underfed, undernourished queen. It's what we call a scrub queen, and she's not going to be a productive queen. So, and that